So this is my magical pickled jalapeno jar smoke machine, and I'm waiting for the high temperature silicone gasket stuff to cure. I know that there's going to be gaps in here where like air is going to be leaking out, so I'm going to be doing a second pass on this. That's because I don't have a glue gun. I don't think I have a glue gun, but I've got the transfer pump hooked up to it, and I've got my soldering iron. I'm probably going to tear the soldering iron out of there like after I get the leaks fixed. But those rags are soaked in mineral oil, so all I've got to do is plug that in and test the whole thing out. I don't know where I'm going to hook the hoses up to stuff. I guess I'm just going to pull random hoses and try, putting it into different spots and seeing where there's leaks. I assume my hose here that's as porous as a sponge might be one of the spots. I'm trying to get the studs off of the hub. In order to do that, I unbolted the bolts that connect the caliper to the knuckle. My next task is to get the brake caliper off of the rotor, and in order to do that, I have to compress the pistons. And people are like, well, you got to put a screwdriver in between the pistons and the rotor, and it's like, look, if I could fit a screwdriver in between the pistons and the hub, then I wouldn't have the problem that it's like compressed onto there in the first place. And it's like, all right, cool. So I put it into, if I put it into drive, then how am I supposed to get it to stop without putting the brakes on? I guess I could pull the parking brake and hope that that stops it. Just from going from its idle speed to a stop, maybe. But I'd have to put the tire back on and the knuckle thingy back on. So I guess I could have done that, maybe? Because if I pulled the parking brake, it would just affect the back tires, not the front. But I don't want to do that. So instead, I'm going to do something that probably is going to take even more time because, I'll have to take them off and then put them back on, which is unbolt the things that link the this piece from this piece. I don't know what the terminology is between the two, and I don't really care. So I guess that's what I'm going to do next, and then I'll compress the pistons after I've already taken it off. I released the bleeder valve on this thing, and it's just been trickling out like this, even though I even completely took it off and like it didn't just spray everywhere. And I still could not get the pistons to compress. I also took the cap off of the brake fluid reservoir, and it still wouldn't compress. And it's not for lack of having a C-clamp, because I used a vise and it still wouldn't compress. So I think probably what would happen if I were to loosen this thing is that there would be an extremely high pressure amount of brake fluid that would just be shooting out. Because if I can't compress it like with all the strength in my arms, or even a vise, then I'm sure there must be a tremendous amount of pressure behind that thing. So I'm just, slowly letting it just dribble out and hoping maybe it will compress enough with the amount of force that I've put on it with, with the vise and, with using my gigantic channel locks, that maybe I can compress it after some of it, has dribbled out. So I'm just leaving that for a 10 minutes from now problem. And that's being generous that it's going to be 10 minutes from now, because take a look at the old studs that were in there, and they came out pretty easy. You'll notice that in addition to this spot of weld being there for some reason, it looks like they angle grinded part of it off so that it would fit past the tone wheel, this thing, in order to squeeze past that. And I think in order to take off the tone wheel, I would just have to completely take off the hub. And in order to do that, I'd have to take out the cap and take off the gigantic castle nut that's holding it on there. And no, I don't have it supported, and I don't think it's really going to matter that much. In order to do that, I would have to put everything back on. Well, I'd only have to put the wheel back on in order to do that, but I don't want to do that. So I might end up having to angle grind the bolts in order to fit them in there. So the parts that I used, or the parts that I bought, were these Dorman 98237.1, 610-395.1, and I think these are for the back wheels, because with these, they've got a flat part at the end of them here, and these don't have that flat part. There's not a one-to-one match with these and the front wheel ones, which are 610-368.1, 98220.1. And the difference between these two, in addition to that flat part, is really negligible. Like, these are a little bit longer than these. And like I said, there's not a one-to-one match. The, you know, you can see that part of this is a little bit thicker than this piece over here. And this piece right here is a little bit longer than this one over here. I don't think it's going to matter, so let's just do a jump cut and we'll see what's happened next. I really don't want to have to angle grind these if I don't have to. Yep, I used the thingy to get it seated, or at least started, but the problem is, how in the world do I get this tightened even more, because this thing is going to keep spinning, and I can't tighten it any more than this because I don't have the brake caliper on. No matter how much force I'm going to put on this, it's not going to matter, because it takes a lot more than I can just do with, you know, bracing it myself in order to get it in there. I could use the vise maybe, but maybe that would also start to get it in there crooked. I don't know what to do next. I'm thinking, so somebody, one person on the entire internet, said that what you can do is put the wheel back on, and it takes less than 100 foot-pounds of force in order to tighten this thing down and get it to fully seat. So probably what's going to end up happening is I'm going to put the tire on, lower it back down, and I'm just going to leave this thing off for now. It's not really important. I just have to make sure it doesn't, like, you know, get bound up, or, you know, that it doesn't get squished by something else, or, you know, get stuck in the wrong place. Put the wheel on, tighten them down to spec, and see if maybe that'll just seat it by itself, because I don't know what else to do. I don't own an impact thingy, and I don't really want to buy an impact thingy if I don't have to. Although maybe I'm overdue for getting one by now. But maybe I can just avoid it by doing something a little bit simpler and saner. Okay, that didn't work. So the problem is, it still doesn't seat. It's just dangling there. It just won't stay in place. I've got a problem with my idea, which is that what's going to happen is, I think when I put on the lug nuts, this thing is just going to be rotating in place. And because it's not intended to, you know, be bolted in, I'm not going to be able to hold it on with anything. It's got the little splines that'll help grip, you know, the inside of that thing. And if I screw up that, like if I start rotating this and screw up the splines on the inside of this thing, you know, like widen it up too much, I'm not going to be able to get anything to stick in there, and that's going to mean that I'm going to have to replace the entire hub. So I don't know what to do next. I think the only thing I can do is just buy an impact gun. And that's going to be like, what, $200, $300? I don't want to do that. Yes, it would help in some cases, but in a lot of cases, everything is so tight quarters that it's not going to matter. So an impact wrench isn't going to even do anything. It's not going to help me. So it's just like a useless purchase, and it's like for getting this like $2 part into place. So I don't know what to do next. I got the bleeder valve back on. I mopped up the stuff surrounding it with a paper towel, so there shouldn't be anything more coming out of it. I think I over-tightened it down, over-tightened it some. It was supposed to be 124 inch-pounds, but I think I over-tightened it because I didn't recognize that the click was happening. And I double-checked it with my other torque wrench after I'd done it with the 1/4 inch one. And it recognized it as being at least 14 foot-pounds, so I think I probably over-tightened it. I don't know if that will really cause a problem, though. Ideally, I would have just done it to 14 foot-pounds or 124 inch-pounds and left it at that, but I don't know what the result of that is going to be. I used a 10mm socket for this, 12mm socket for this, and 15mm socket for the ones that connected to the knuckle. Did I say 15? I said 15. It's 124 for this, inch-pounds for this, or 14 foot-pounds, and then for this it's 18 foot-pounds, and then for the knuckle ones it's 65 foot-pounds. So I'm not going to put the tire back on, which would be 95 foot-pounds, and the reason why I'm not going to do that is because I'm going to work on the O2 sensors next. And I'm going to disconnect the battery just because I want to see, not necessarily because it's a risk of shock, but because I want to see if, like, after I replace those, if it resets itself, like the computer resets itself and recognizes, oh, maybe there's no problem. The other thing I'm going to do, I got my thingy dried and cured and stuff, so it should work. Next time I do this, I'm going to use hot glue because it's easier to get it off, and I want to be able to use my soldering tool again after I've checked all the leaks and stuff. So I'm going to do that later, but I'm going to do the O2 sensors first. I don't know if I really need to replace the gasket, the valve cover gasket. I got the stuff in the mail for this. Like, the picture showed that it would include these little studs that fit inside the holes, like inside the holes for this, but all they sent was grommets, which I think are just things that fit on the inside of this. So that's the stuff that I got to do next. Like, I've mentioned before that the mechanic said that there was a leak on one of the exhaust manifolds, and I don't know which one, but I expect to have to, at some point in the future, take out the exhaust manifold and work on that. But that's not going to be today. I think my resolution is to buy an air compressor off Facebook Marketplace. The reason why I do that instead of going to Harbor Freight is because like, sometimes people have more accessories if they're selling the compressor off of Facebook Marketplace. Like, they'll have a hose or some adapters or some gauges and stuff. And I'm gonna get like a $40 air impact thingy off of from Harbor Freight, because those actually are that's cheaper than I thought it would be. I thought it would be several $100s, but you'd get more oomph. Yeah, I'm just going to end the video there. I took off the thingy, the dust cover, mud guard. I was trying to get to the O2 sensor. Turns out you cannot get to the O2 sensor from behind the mud shield, because do you know where the thingy is? It is behind the frame, not behind the mud shield. It is up into the rear of where this thing is. So you absolutely cannot get to it from in here. You cannot get to it from in here. You cannot like reach it from all these twisting, bending tubes, because it's down there past the exhaust manifold, and you can't get it from underside the car either. You can't get to it from anywhere. So how are you supposed to get to it? There's nowhere you can reach it. Like, the only possible place would be from underside the car. And it's like, I put the wrench on there, and you know how much space you have to move the wrench? That much. You cannot get enough leverage to take it off. The only way that I'm going to be able to take that off is by getting an O2 sensor socket. I can get to the rear ones. I can't get to the front ones though. I got the mud guard back on. I broke not one, but two Phillips head thingies trying to get the one of the screws off on this, and I think I rounded it out with a third. So I'm pretty sure that thing is gonna have to be drilled out if I really want to take that off. So I wasn't able to get into the O2 sensor. I was thinking that maybe I could instead take out the nuts from each end of the exhaust. And I don't have a 15 millimeter deep socket though. That's like the one socket that I lost a while ago. 5/8 fits over it just fine, but those things are really seized on there. And I'm afraid that I'm going to break them if I manage to take them off. I don't know. I don't really want to take off both ends of the exhaust. I don't think they require any kind of gasket. I think they're just held on by like that flange piece. I think if I really need to take them off, I'm going to use a breaker bar and attach it to my thingy down here. So I'm going to do an adapter down from, the 1/2 inch breaker bar, so I don't break my socket wrench trying to get them off. And I'm going to use like a cheater bar, the tube from the jack, in order to get those off of there if it's even possible. Or skip that and just wait until I buy the 1/2 inch air gun with the compressor and everything, and buy that first, and just try to get it off with that, because the one that I'm looking at is 900 foot-pounds of torque, and I'm pretty sure that's more than I can exert from just these this really restricted space that I've got going on here. So I'm going to try buying just one of those compact thin wall sockets that isn't like one of those deep socket that fits over it, but is one of those more shallow kind that's short, and it's got thin walls. And I'll just try putting an extension onto it from there, and then see if there's any kind of leverage that I can put on it from there, so that I don't have to detach the exhaust. So today's kind of been a bust. I can't really use my smoke machine because it's still got gaps in it. Like, it's not pressurized, so I had to put even more of the gasket stuff on there. I'm thinking today maybe I'll go to Harbor Freight and get the air gun thing, because they're having a parking lot sale, but then again, I don't know if it'd be any cheaper to go today, because yes, they've got a parking lot sale, but I don't know if any kind of their discounts would
matter with what I'm thinking of buying. So what is the stuff that I need to get from Harbor Freight? Glue gun, glue sticks, maybe one of those sockets if they have it there, like an O2 sensor socket if they have it there. What else? Someone was saying that you needed ratcheting thingies in order to get the valve cover off. I don't really think you do. What kind of bolts even are these? Like, I don't think you really need one of those in order to get those off. One guy was saying that because of the size that they are, like the odd size that they are, you have to have an SAE thing. Like, because millimeters, you know, metric is the wrong size. But I don't know if that'll be necessary. I could get body tools so that I could get that, you know, pounded out. I almost forgot to put this back on. I think we're good in terms of how much that thing needs, because minimum is, I don't think they even show what the minimum thingy on here is. Right now it's like at that seam, like where that seam is. I could put some more in there. It looks like, you know, it could do with some more. I mean, the brakes are still working, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm just going to dump some more in there, just in case. It couldn't hurt. It's, you know, back being attached now, so it's not a big deal. I was able to get it on there. I think whatever I was able to do... Oh, C-clamp. That's what I need to get. Just, you know, for future use, and maybe some channel locks. Yeah, this is going to turn into a shopping spree of spending more money than I really have to. You know, but the channel locks aren't really going to do anything, and the C-clamp wasn't going to do anything, because again, the vise wasn't doing anything, so I don't think either of those would have helped. I'm not going to get a mighty vac system to make the bleeding the brakes easier. I'm just going to try doing it with the with this bottle. It's got a check valve. I don't think it's got a check valve on it. It might. What is this? What is this? Why is this here? Is this supposed to be there? What's going on? Oh, that's already plugged. I don't have to worry about that. That's nothing. So this is what the differential cover gasket looks like. Release the differential itself. So at the very least, I think that could use a new gasket. But my question is, does it also need a new seal? Because look at all this oil here. That tells me that it needs a new seal. It's also got a lot of stuff overflowing. I'm guessing that's just like a pressure release valve. Another thing that I've noticed is that there are no axle stabilizer pneumatic thingies anywhere here. It just doesn't have any installed. I don't know if it's supposed to, or if it just like isn't supposed to have any. Like this model isn't supposed to have any of those stabilizers. It's been like a week since the last video I shot, just because like I had to gather more tools and parts. So we're still back where we were, where we don't have the studs in place or anything. I bought some brake parts because like my suspicion is that these are seized up and that's why they wouldn't compress. So pretty much what I bought was a seal, like for the pistons on this. So maybe that'll make things better. The brakes have been squishy ever since the last time I worked on this, and to anybody who watched the section of the video prior to this one, they would probably be like, well, duh, it's because you let the brake master cylinder reservoir run dry.
So I think what happened was because I was gravity bleeding the brakes, it just ran out of juice in the reservoir. So I put air in the brakes. The brakes have been squishy ever since. I was able to have some brakes, but just not a lot. I think there's just air in the system. So I'm going to have to take this thing off anyway to service the caliper piston thingies on this anyway. And you know, that'll tell me like whether or not the seals were even bad, but as long as I'm disconnecting it, it's like, okay, whether like I'm going to be disconnecting it, so I might as well like service the pistons on it for, you know, for the future. So I'm going to open the bleeder valve and let some of it dribble out and hopefully not have this just spray right in my eyeballs and mouth. But also what I've been doing since then was I got a 6-gallon, 150 PSI air compressor, and it says it goes up to 270, but it cuts off at 150, so I don't know why the dials even go to 270. This thing is rusty. I might replace it with a different one. I got this hose for like $12. I got the fittings, like the thingy on this end and on this end for like $7. I still need to get like, okay, so the order of operations here was I got the impact wrench for $50. After that, I went and got this thing for $50. Then I went to Harbor Freight and I looked at the specifications for this thing on the shelf, and it said, not recommended for 6-gallon compressors. For ones that are above that, you can go intermittent, but it's not recommended for 6-gallon compressors. And like, I looked at the ones on the shelf, and like for ones that were like bigger than that, they were, okay, so this one is 6 SCFM or SCFI, I think. And this is not that. This is like 2.3 or something. So it's way short of what this thing is specified for. And I don't know what it would take in order to drive this thing. Like, there were $1,300 compressors at Harbor Freight. You know, and even then it was like the one that was capable of driving like 6 So this thing turns on at 120, and there's no way to override it. This is saying that its output is going to be 120, but the maximum for this is 90, and yet the specification for this thing requires something that's more than this in order to drive it. So I'm not understanding the whole calculations for this thing. Hopefully I'm not going to kill this thing by running it at 120 PSI when its maximum is 90. They say, okay, so after that, I looked in the instructions for this thing, and they say that they're supposed to have an air regulator ball joint valve, you know, to reduce the pressure on it. And I guess I should probably also have, like, okay, so the instructions have specifications for the different parts that you're supposed to be getting, and I don't have any of those parts. All I've got is a tube and the wrench. So I'm not running this the way I'm supposed to, and I'm going to have to get more parts in order just to get this thing to work. So hopefully I just don't kill this thing, but we're ready to rotate this thing on and get the brake calipers worked on. So things are not going as planned. Just kind of as anticipated, what's happening is the wrench is draining this within a few seconds of use. And it's going from like 150 to 120 pretty fast. And it's not really pulling this. It's not really putting a lot of oomph into pulling this flush where it's supposed to be. And it's just like, it'll it'll fire for a few seconds, and then it'll just slowly run down to where it's not, the hammers aren't doing anything in it. So it's just like I'm hammering at it for, a few seconds and then waiting for the thing to turn back on. And there's no way to get it to where it's staying topped off at 150. It just has to run down to 120 in order for it to turn on. And there's just no setting to override that. And this thing is only supposed to be running at 90, and I've got it cranked up to 150, and it's still not pulling it flush. So I was thinking what I could do, and I got out like my this thing, and was thinking maybe I could use that. But the problem with that is that I'm afraid that it's likely going to end up warping the hub, because think about this. Where is the metal supposed to go if this thing expands? It's just gonna buckle it and warp it and stuff. Even if it's less than is, perceptible with the naked eye, it's gonna be warped somehow, I think. So I'm only gonna do that as a measure of last resort. I mean, I guess potentially I could have put these in the freezer and then heated it up some to where it was a little bit wider, but this metal is thick. I don't think that this metal would just easily expand, to accommodate that, because I think what they're just expecting is just these are installed at the factory. And, at the factory, they've got something that's, a $2,000 air compressor that can run sustained, and it'll just, do what it's supposed to. So I don't know what I'm going to do next. I guess I'm just going to keep doing this stop and start kind of a thing. Well, I tried. I heated up the other one. I heated up the hub with my propane torch, and then tried, ratcheting it in, and it isn't going in any easier than the other one did. I finally got the other one to seat, and I don't think you could really even get a feeler gauge in between the head and the hub, the head of the bolt and the hub. So it took me an hour and a half of just running it some, and then stopping, and running it some, and then stopping, for it to finally get pulled into where it's supposed to be. So I was hoping I could expand it some with the heat, and then that would, help some, but it just hasn't. In other news, I ordered some U-joints for the drive axle. I ordered one of them, and then I realized that I'd only ordered one, and then I had to order the other one through Amazon, just because I didn't, I did the math and it would be cheaper to do it that way instead of having to wait for another one to come from Rock Auto and paying for shipping from Rock Auto. But I got two of those, and then after I'd ordered the first one, I'd read a comment from someone saying that Moog greasable U-joint fixings are bad, and they go bad. This is after I'd ordered the first one, so it was kind of too late for me to do anything, and I was like, I should probably order one that matches the other one, because I'd read a comment from somebody else saying that you're supposed to replace them in pairs. So I just went ahead and ordered another Moog fitting, even though one or both of them are probably going to go bad. And the thingies that go to the wheel axles, on the outside, those bearings, where you have to pretty much remove some parts within the differential to loosen the axles in order to take out the axles. I was like, I don't want to replace the U-joints until I've gotten those bearings, because I want to be doing everything at once and not having to drain the stuff and then refill it, because it'd be a waste of differential fluid. So I want to just do everything at once if I can.
And ideally, I just have all the parts and be able to do everything at once, but I don't have them, and I'm not going to get them till Monday, and I don't know what time on Monday they're going to arrive, and I don't want to get to a point where it's like I've got to go to work on Monday night and then not have the stuff there. I got the smoke machine to work, kind of. So the red gasket stuff, the Permatex red gasket stuff, does not adhere to hot glue very well. So there's gaps in it where the air is coming out. Most of the air is coming out from beneath that seal anyway. So it's kind of pressurized, but kind of not. And I don't know how good of a pressure seal I'm going to be able to get with it. I think I might have to redo this whole thing just with a mason jar instead, and without any of the red gasket stuff being there, you know, so that it gets a better seal. You know, because I accidentally plugged in the hot iron, like the soldering iron, and, you know, it's generating smoke, but I don't know how much pressure I'm going to be able to get, and, you know, to be able to really see through most of the system, you know, where air is going. And I want it to be really obvious and get a lot of the air coming out. And yes, I can be doing it with like some soapy water and stuff, you know, but I want to go the smoke route. I mean, it's not even the smoke. It's just, if you've got something that has positive pressure going from inside to outside, you have to be generating that from some source. And if it's a vacuum system, it's going to be pulling air in, not out. So it's like, okay, I have to be getting positive pressure from something. So why don't I get it from an air compressor? Well, first of all, you're not supposed to be using an air compressor for that because it's going to be generating too much force. So I really need to get like a pressure regulator in line to where I can reduce that force down. So I got this like with all the other stuff. And the problem is this is like a 1/4 inch or something NPT fitting. Yeah, see, 1/4 inch inlet size. And I don't have a female 1/4 inch one. I used that one up with the kit on that fitting on the hose. So essentially I'm going to have to go back to Harbor Freight and get another fitting or buy some more fittings off of Amazon because I don't have any here that would work with this. So that's going to affect me working on the brakes, because what you're supposed to do is take the whole thing off and run pressurized air through the inlet in order to punch out the pistons. So instead of that, I'm going to be using just the brake pedal and hoping that they're forced out with that, because I don't know how else I'm going to get those things out. Like I could try just having no fitting on the end here and just having air just wildly shooting out. I don't really like that idea because it just sounds like it's not a very controlled method of doing it. So I'm guessing I'm going to be doing another 1.5 hours of trying to get this thing on with that. Maybe I'll be checking different parts in the engine while that thing is in between that thing charging back up. So it looks like I caused a problem where there was none. Although I can't really explain why these things weren't compressing when they needed to be compressed, you know, going back to where they were. So several things. The seals on these look perfectly fine with no problems on them whatsoever. Like, I can't see any problem with them. They look completely smooth and flush with the inside of this thing, and there's no problem. And all of this could have been avoided if I had an air, a thingy to compress, a thingy to attach the air gun to the compressor. Because there's a channel at the bottom of each one of these piston wells. And that's how the stuff gets from one channel to the other. And it's how stuff gets to the bleeder valve. Like, the only way that stuff gets to the bleeder valve is by going through both pistons. So I could have, because this one wasn't coming out. So I could have put air in through here and just, I guess, put my finger over the hole in the bottom there and got it to shoot out. But it wasn't coming out. It was stuck. So I kept, I first of all, just tried pulling it out with my fingers, and this came off. Okay, so before I show you this, keep that in mind. It was already broken. Like part of the edge of it was already broken. I just made it worse. So in trying to get it out, I tore the boot. So now dust is going to be able to get in there, even if I do put everything back together exactly as it was. So I don't know where I can get a boot, because in the listings that I saw, like the boots weren't included in the caliper repair kits. It was just this the metal clip that attaches this to the piston and the interior seal. So keep that in mind before I show you this. It was already broken. I just broke it worse. These are made of two pieces. One of them is, I think this has got to be steel, like that this is made from. And I guess the steel just got brittle and rusted over time, maybe from exposure to brake fluid. And the inner part of it looks like it's made of aluminum or something. So it's possible I can beat this back into shape, but I'm expecting that I'm not going to be able to get there, and I'm going to be spending a long time trying to get this beaten back into shape towards flush, you know, to where I can actually compress the brake pad and not run into problems there. Like, and you can tell, like, this looks like it's been broken for a long time. And the way that I finally got it out was using my giant channel locks and just like twisting it back and forth in order to get it out. And maybe I should have done that in the first place, but I thought, because this is just a solid piece of metal, supposedly, I thought it was, I just used my spatula thingy and a hammer and was trying to get it out of there, and that's where it started to deform. So that's why it looks like this. Although looking at the bottom of this, it looks like it's kind of discolored and everything. Actually, both of these kind of look like that. I don't know. I don't think the discoloration is any kind of an indication of problems. So even if I were to just reuse the calipers as is, I've still got maybe a piston to replace, so I don't know what to do next. I'm still doing the thing where I'm going back and forth, with just turning the thing on and beating on this and then turning it off and stuff. I wish I could just beat on this with a hammer or something, or have taken it off and gotten it onto a hydraulic press. I've been thinking about getting a shop press, but those things are like $200, $100 to $200, and I don't want to get one if I don't have to. So just one problem after another. Nothing is just a simple fix. Okay, so I kind of beat this thing back into shape as good as I could. It's still missing a lot of material underneath the aluminum cup, and I'm assuming that's aluminum. Either that or it's just very thin steel. So it's kind of level, but kind of not. This is the thingy that the dust boot hangs on to. So that's what this groove is for. So really the worst case scenario, well, worst case scenario is catastrophic failure, but second worst case scenario is that dust gets in that gap that apparently has been there for a long time, because it's already, you know, very discolored compared to this is the stuff that newly broke off. It pretty much slides in there like it's supposed to. I cleaned this off with a wire wheel some, but I didn't go too overboard. I just gave up because it wasn't coming off easily. I could just do what some people do, which is take a propane torch and go over it and just burn off, you know, some of the gunk that's built up onto it, and wire wheel it some and clean it with brake parts cleaner and everything. But I don't want to, because none of that's going to matter if I can't just functionally get it to work. So that's my first and only priority, is just to get the stupid thing to work. So I'm just going to assume that this is going to go in there like it's supposed to, and it'll stay in there, and nothing bad will ever happen to it again. So the repair kit that I got didn't say that it comes with 2 of these, but apparently it does. I would have only bought one for one side because that's really all I needed, I think. But it comes with dust boots. I thought it just came with like a metal ring and the seal, but apparently there's no metal ring and it just comes with this stuff. So this side is the one that faces towards the caliper. This is the side that faces towards the brake pads, because this piece is hooking inside its own groove and this piece is hooking inside the bigger groove. I'm still just doing the start and stop thing with this. It's making some progress, just it's extremely slow progress. It's like moving like 1/1000th of an inch at a time. It's just, this is ridiculous. I need more power and I'm just not getting it. I could maybe try, you know, a breaker bar and try turning it that way and like try to brace this with a pry bar and see if maybe that works. But I don't think that my strength is going to be any different from, is probably going to be less effective than trying to use this thing. So I'm just going to stick to this for now. So the current thing I'm struggling with is trying to get these things back in. I put the seal in and that's easy, but I cannot get the boot to be seated where it's supposed to go. Somebody suggested a method for using an air compressor to kind of force the piston into the boot after you've seated the boot where it's supposed to go, but I still don't have a working compressor gun, so I've got to just try to get it in there myself. So what I've done is I've slipped this on there part way and I got that one at least seated. I still have to clamp it down, but I got it on there towards the bottom and then put it so that the base is kind of towards the back of the caliper, you know, and then just kind of spin it around until it's seated where it's supposed to go. So that's what I'm working on next. I'm still doing the thing where I'm doing the stop and go. Okay, so I got the both of the pistons in where they're supposed to be. They're compressed down all the way, so it's ready to go in. I'm still working on this and I can't really do anything until this thing is seated. So the brake line to caliper thingy bolt is going to be 30 foot-pounds. I think this was 124 foot-pounds. I'm going to have to look up the other ones. I downloaded a shop manual for this thing, for the whole car. It's dated to 2003, but I don't think there's really been any significant changes like since then. I'm going to put caliper grease on some of this stuff, and I'm going to make sure that with these things at least, like I'm probably going to clean those off and actually wire wheel this stuff, because this is actually a moving part and it's going to matter. So yeah, gonna lubricate stuff. Yeah, that looks pretty dry. Well, it's got some grease on it. I think I managed to ruin the threads on the inlet port of the caliper. So I'm thinking that was from the over tightening it last time. So what I'm gonna do is, they're an M10 1.5 thing, and so I'm going to try tapping it and seeing if maybe that'll restore the threads enough that it'll let me get the screw in there. So it occurs to me that I didn't mess with that line at all. So whoever messed up the threads, that wasn't me. That was whoever was previously working on the car, because I've never, you know, done any maintenance on the brake lines. So something I noticed, and I checked over on the other side to make sure that this is the way it's supposed to be. There's a gap in between
this thing and the actual brake caliper, like that block and the brake caliper. I checked on the other side, it's also got that gap, so it's not a problem, and I think that's the way it's supposed to be. If not, I don't know what else to do about it. Next step is just keep doing this. I've been doing this for like an hour and a half, and I don't even know how much progress it's been making. Feels like it's been very little. I could get out a micrometer and see just how much, you know, progress it's making every time I do this. It feels like it's just barely anything at all. Also, I noticed this when I first cranked up the car this morning. There's a lot of oil under there, and I don't know where that could be coming from. Like, there's just a million different places that it could be coming from. Like, my fear is that it's coming from the rear main seal. And just, I think it might be that just because it's the most difficult to access place. So of course it would be that. The stud broke, because of course it did. Yes, the stud broke before, like, getting seated. Like, that is just too much to ask of it. Doing its job of screwing in like it's supposed to was just too hard for it. So I've now got a ruined lug nut, which is okay because I've got a brand new set of 4 of them. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to do the exact same thing with no variations on it to put the other stud into it. I don't know what else to do. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. I don't think it was put in there crooked or anything. All right, I was able to get the old stud that broke out and get the new one in. The secret sauce was using some lube on the bearing thing that I had on there, you know, the spacer, and on the threads, and on the little the splines that hold it into place. And the reason why I didn't do that the first time around was because somebody said you shouldn't do that because then it'll get itself loose. Like it'll somehow back out under vibrations and everything. But I don't know what else I could have done differently. But it's seated in there, and it was way, way easier. I only had to do this like twice, I think. I don't think I had to do it 3 times. And I just backed the lug nut off, and so now I'm down to 2 of the old ones, and I got 3 new ones. So I'm 5 for 5 in terms of lug nuts and studs now. My next step is going to just be putting everything back on the way it's supposed to go. I'll try to dry as much of the lube off as I can because obviously I don't want slippery brakes. And just put everything back together. Well, actually, after I do that, after I've got everything back together, I'm going to bleed out the first one a little bit because I might as well now that the tire's off. Then I'm going to go to driver's side, back, and then this one, and then this one, and then that one. I don't know how exactly I'm going to be able to tell if the air is out of the system because I'm not going to be looking at it while I'm doing it. People have used like clear PVC pipe attached to the outlet, like the bleeder valve, and then snake it all the way back to the master cylinder thing and dump the liquid back in there. And that's how they're able to do it, you know, without any extra person there. But I guess the way that I'm going to be able to see it is this is going to be attached to, so this tube is going to be disconnected from this black thing, and it's going to be connected to the bleeder valve. And I'll probably be able to see, just based on any liquid that's going to be in that channel, if there's any air still in it. So hopefully I'll be able to see it. So
So when I was cleaning off the brake caliper thingy, the bracket thingy, with a wire wheel, I bumped one of the sliders that the brake pads go onto, and so it kept falling off, so I just tacked some JB Weld steel stick on there, but I don't think it's really, yeah, it's not really helping at all. So maybe I'll just, I don't know, dab a spot of grease or something on there, because now I've got to take this back off because it's already like starting to harden and everything. And I don't just have like plain old epoxy. I guess I could try some like plastic epoxy, or you could just, you know, put a little dot of grease there to just keep it tacky enough that it'll stay in place. But I don't like how it's doing this. See, because with this one, there's like pretty much no movement there. With this one, it just isn't even staying on. So yet another thing that I've broken. It's because it was sitting on the ground and I just inadvertently stepped on it. Well, inadvertently, kind of vertently. So I was holding it like this, and then the little longer thing on the side snapped off. So I really don't want to have to get another one of these if I can avoid it. But I don't know if it'll just hold itself on, you know, with all the movement and everything that's going to be going on. Like the brake pads themselves are going to hold, you know, put some pressure onto this thing, but I don't want to be going like 80, or I don't go 80, but like because of the vibrations and stuff, and that happened above 65 miles an hour, but and have this thing just fall off like while I'm driving. So I don't know what to do exactly, as per usual. Like ordinarily the steel stick does a pretty good job of holding stuff into place, but it could be just because I haven't sufficiently cleaned the surfaces and everything, or maybe I just didn't use enough. I don't know. I don't want to have to get another springy thing and wait for that to come. Okay, I got the caliper thingy on, the whole assembly. So next step is just to bleed it. The hose, 30 foot-pounds. The anchor bolts to the knuckle, 85 foot-pounds. The slider pin bolts, 23 foot-pounds. I looked those up in the manual, so that's at least what they're supposed to be according to the manual. So next step is just try to see if it's possible to even bleed these. I got brake fluid on this stuff. I bought this on February 20th, 2016, and I've never used it. So you hook, you unhook this from the black check valve, and you attach that to the bleed valve, crack it open, you press the brake several times, you mount it lower than the brake line, not higher, lower. I was thinking, oh, it's got to be like gravity, blah, blah, blah. No, it's just, it's lower. All right, so this is what the fluid looks like coming out. The stuff that's going in is pretty much clear, and it's got like a more reddish tint. Like you can kind of see that. So this is just really dirty and green and stuff. Hopefully I'm not going to overfill this thing. And I want to see what this looks like in a clear container, so I'm going to pour a little bit of this in here as a reference. Alright, so that is what it looks like when it's coming out of the bottle. So it's got like almost a reddish tint to it. Focus. It's got like an orangey reddish tint to it, and doesn't have that same like, I don't know, black tea color to it.
So I'm gonna put some more of this in there, and hopefully I don't run out before. Like, I'm just trying to bleed the front parts, but it's still coming out dirty, so maybe I ought to wait, you know, and do the super clear, ultra clear version until I know that I'll have enough left over to finish the job.
Okay, so I got the other wheel off and wire wheeled it because it was kind of stuck on there a little bit, but it didn't have to really fight it to get it off too much. I used a pry bar and a mallet and hammered at the seam in between the two by putting the pry bar through the spokes in the wheel. The rear bleeder valve uses an 11 millimeter, not a 10. And I guess maybe you could make the excuse that the reason why they did that is so that you don't get the front and the rear ones mixed up. So after that, I used Nutella and put the Nutella on there. It's anti-seize, it's copper anti-seize, just to keep it from doing that thing where it gets stuck on there again. I think this is closed enough. I did 84 inch-pounds on this, which is the 7 foot-pounds that you're supposed to torque it to. So it should do what it's supposed to. And if it doesn't, then it's not my fault because I didn't write the thingy. You can see why I'm doing the drivetrain gasket replacement, like, because it's oily back here and it's oily up there. And I tried to figure out where the oil was dripping from up front. I'm really afraid that it's going to be like one of the cylinder head gaskets. I stood up too fast. I haven't had anything to drink or eat since like 8 a.m. and it's like 4 right now. But I didn't notice any wet spots around the valve cover. So I've got a, you know, my dread is that it's one of the cylinder head gaskets, because the cylinder head gasket sandwich is beneath the exhaust manifold, like where those pipes come in. And it's dripping around where the exhaust manifold tube is, like the outlet to it. The little plug on the oil pan looks like it has a little bit of wetness on it. And I don't know if you can tell, but right at the very end, at the bottom of that oil pan, there's a drop of oil right there. So that tells me that it's possible that that gasket is bad at the very least. Maybe. Maybe it's coming from somewhere else, though. Maybe it's coming from the rear main seal. So it's frustrating to try to track this down. It's just very elusive. I mean, you could tell that it's right where the... hang on, there's the bell housing, and then there's the snout that goes from the bell housing. So that's the snoot, and that's the... I'm trying to see. I'm trying to use my camera to figure out where it is, but it's not coming from the seam in between this thing and the oil pan. It's coming from further back here. See where all that wetness is? That wet oil, like that, is right where the oil is dripping down onto the pavement. And that's like all one piece. That's not, there's no gasket there. That's just all one piece. So oil is dripping down onto that thing from somewhere else, like higher up. And that's the lowest point. So I can use that as a reference.
problem is with references is that I can't see any of the reference points from here. That's the valve cover, that's the valve cover. And I can't even fit my phone in there. That is like how tight we're talking. Like my phone isn't even 1/4 of an inch thick. See where that wetness is right there? I don't know if you can see that or not. But like that is where, you know, the cylinder head starts to attach. And up above that it looks dry, and below it looks wet. That looks wet. Like it looks wet below there. I do not want to have to replace those gaskets, because that is just, it means taking off the entire timing cover, this thing, the valve covers, just so many different things, taking out the radiator, getting all kinds of different tools. It's just like a $400 job, like just to try to stop that oil from dripping. Got this driver's side rear tire back on. Did this stuff to make sure it would come off. Do you notice what I notice? Or rather, am noticing the absence of? There's no wheel balance thingy. There's no wheel weight. So somebody on Reddit has suggested that it was possible that one of the wheel weights had come off, and it looks like they're right. So that might have been part of the reason why we were getting the wobble at above 65 miles an hour. But that doesn't explain why that thing looks like it's wet. And I think that that's from differential fluid coming out. So I still want to take off the axles, put on new seals and bearings and stuff. The other side looked fine. It didn't look like it had any leaks. So it could be that that was coming either from the seal in the axle, or just from the little brake thing not being tightened down enough. I tightened it down to the 84 inch pounds like it's supposed to be tightened down to, but you know, maybe that just wasn't tightened down enough. I'm not convinced that that's what caused it. Although this oil on here does look a lot thinner, you know, differential fluid is like really, really thick. So I don't know if this stuff is or is not brake fluid. There's just, you know, it couldn't hurt to, well, it's going to hurt to get all that stuff replaced, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Is this supposed to be like this? I think where that piece of metal is folded like that. Yes, it is.
So yeah, it's gonna hurt a lot to do those axle thingies, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm getting all the parts for it, but it's not gonna be until next weekend. If I do anything else this weekend, it's gonna be the O2 sensors. So one more brake thingy to go. I'm gonna try to see if I can do a survivalist thing of going without food or water or medicine for another hour or so in order to get this side done. This one has wheel weights on, wait, hang on, yeah. This one has wheel weights on inner and outer. This one has a wheel weight on inner only, no outer. This one has wheel weight, no inner, yes outer. This one has a wheel weight, yes inner, no outer. So all 3 out of the 4 are missing a wheel weight. So it could be that I ought to get these all, you know, rebalanced. After if getting the differential, all the stuff with the differential fixed doesn't help.